Unmute yourself, Jack.
What a start. We're off to a
Has he
fantastic.
frozen up? Good evening, everybody. It seems that Gob has frozen. Until he unfreezes, I shall do my best to carry us through the opening few minutes of this show. You will note a couple of...
Good evening, ladies and gents. It's Monday. It's just gone 8 o'clock because we never ever start on time, but this is the live lounge here. I'm not on mute.
Oh, he's behind here. He's massively behind here. Something's gone
How
wrong.
far away is he?
Am I lagging?
Lagging? It's like a
long way
satellite
behind.
delay. It's like calling from the moon.
It's like when he used to be back in his own place, isn't it? Where his internet never worked. It's a blast from the past here.
I think he's got... Has he ran some sort of dial-up cable? He's gone running around the house. No one can use the house phone. Gob's on the internet.
I mean, he is down in Portsmouth now. I'm surprised they've got any, to be honest.
What is he? Is he back? Are we on?
I mean, he's in Portsmouth. He might as well nip over onto one of the Navy ships. They might have a better connection.
Yeah, evening everybody. Until he does catch up.
Yeah, he might just want to drop out and join again here, I think.
Yeah, let's have a little look.
Anyway, we've got myself, Cam McFarlane, which is a shock because I'm never on here. We've got above me Dan Simpson there, and hopefully we have got Gob as well. Welcome to the live lounge.
Every now and again he moves ever so slightly. Chat room's full. Owen is in, Mark's in, Malik is in, Connor's in, Anthony is in. He's probably excited. Anthony is over there for the imminent arrival of Mr. Phil Bars, the famous Mr. Phil Bars, who I believe is currently in the middle of above the Atlantic Ocean somewhere on his way. Daniel Matthews in, Warren's in, Jeff's in, Kieran's in, the Clippers in, Liam's in. I was absolutely lost tonight. It's absolutely bouncing already in the chat room. It's been a relatively busy week of darts. We've had the Premier League finals night, which I think we had quite a bit of fun actually. We did a bit of a watch along, didn't we?
We had me and you for that. Oh, here we go. What's going on here?
Yeah, you know what's happened? It's because he's gone out. There you go. Look at this.
Beautiful.
This is the sort of skills that I've got these days. I can do stuff like that. So hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, Gob will not be very long as he tries to. What he needs to do, because he's in his new gaff now, he probably needs to knock on next door's door and get their Wi-Fi code, doesn't he? But yeah, it's been a busy old week in darts. We've had the Premier League finals night. We've had Champions Week at the Modus Super Series. We've had a Euro tour over the weekend.
Hang on, give it his proper name, Mr. Simpson.
The Elton Safety Shoes Dutch Darts Masters. You did not catch me out on that. It was there. If it had been anything other than Elton Safety Shoes, now I'll give them something. That has sunk in. I'll not forget. If I'm ever in Holland and need a pair of safety shoes, it'll be Elton's that I'm coming.
I think at any point, not even in Holland. I think if I need some anyway, I'll get some shipped over. They're they're probably the only brand I could tell you.
I was going to say there's not a great deal of competition in my book now. I think we were looking at them at work the other week, and Chris, we will come to that, of course, and then we will talk no more about Chris Dobie's results. We'll talk about that 6-0 whitewash, and then that'll be it. No more Chris Dobie talk after that. I think I'm sort of killing time a minute because I don't really want to steal too much. We've got a really good week this week and lots to talk about, so I'll give him another minute or two to get in. And what we are going to have to get to probably is we mentioned a minute or two ago that the famous Mr. Phil Bars is on his way to America. That is because the US Darts Masters is taking place very soon, this weekend, in fact. So we will be able to have a little bit of a chat about that and what's coming up. We've seen a little bit of progress over the weekend in where we think people are and aren't happy or safe, probably is a better word, for the match play.
Let's laughing at Chris's comments in the chat. It is the world famous Mr. Phil Bars.
Well, he is. Now he's above the Atlantic Ocean. He is world famous, isn't he? So
She doesn't know what plane he's on, does she?
Let's just go. Let's see. Hang on. Let's see what he's saying. Oh, he's on a hot spot. I think he might be back in actually. We'll give him a second or so, and if he is, then we'll get started with the Premier League. Let me just have a little flick around.
Oh, hello.
There he is.
Here he is.
Are you okay, mate? Are you well?
No. Stupid place.
I'll tell you what, that is much better now.
Yeah, I just paid £8 for a day's worth of EE Wi-Fi.
Well,
would you like to redo the intro that I completely butchered, or are you happy just to crack on?
We did an intro, did we? To be honest,
no, we ain't professional enough to do that. I wanted it to be known. Barzy owes me a tenner.
I said hello to everybody.
Is that the old interest on the £8 there? Is it?
No,
100%.
we can't, Bill. That's enough of that. Thanks, Bill. Any more of that, and you'll probably find yourself at risk of being ridiculed summarily by me. We've had a little bit of a chat about everything that's gone on. Busy week in darts, a little bit coming up this weekend. We were about to talk over the Premier League if you want to regain the helm.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, you two actually sat there and watched through.
I was going to say, I can steer
I was
you.
refereeing. So I've seen bits and pieces. It was between sessions, and then I ended up refereeing Champions Week. So it's sort of over to you two for this one. I'm just going to get my page up so we can talk through each game. Why have I searched for that?
Well, I think Cam and I, certainly me, I think it's no secret how much of a Luke Littler fan that I am and how much I enjoy seeing him do well. And because of that, I was absolutely terrified at any point to pick him to win. So every time we've done something in the last week or two, whether that be the Fallout or the Live Lounge or the Watch Along or anything else, I've not once mentioned the fact that I was predicting him to win. Partially in the hope of not dooming him in some strange way. I did pick Michael Smith opening up with a victory. The game, to be completely honest, that opening semi-final was nowhere near as competitive as I thought it would be. It wasn't. I mean, and I know we see great things, or even greater things later in the evening. It wasn't a brilliant match, to be honest, for a semi-final on Premier League's finals night. It was all right, but Luke did well to come through it.
Very one-sided, I thought. Bully Boy, it seemed to be the nuke broke the back of this one very, very early lead, which completely got rid of the fact that the head-to-head was significantly in Michael Smith's favour. And he just ran away with it from there, didn't he? Like, he's got the job done. He's averaged 100. We said it's not great, but you average 100 over 15 legs, you're clearly doing something okay. But that's just how easy the kid makes the game look these days. It was, a solid performance from the nuke. Runs out at 10-5. Win, as you said, 100 average to Michael Smith's 95. As good as Luke was, I felt Bully Boy was just a little flat in this one.
Yeah, I thought exactly that. We were obviously watching it live, me and Dan, and were sort of struggling to keep up with the stats as we were going along, seeing as they were all down on every possible site at the time. It just sort of led to
Yeah, they all use the same Wi-Fi as Gob.
Yeah, they must do. You want to give them a shout out, whoever it is that's buggered up your Wi-Fi, or we're just going to move on?
Oh, she's not here yet.
Ah, right, okay, fair enough.
It doesn't arrive until next Tuesday, so
that's not true. I moved in here. It was
on next week.
You're not next door and knock and get their Wi-Fi password. That's what you need to do.
Paid for EE now. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, back to the Premier League. Anyway, it just felt like, even though Bully kept it sort of close in the legs early on, it felt like every sort of Littler hold was really easy, and it felt like every hold for Smith was hard work, and he was under pressure constantly. And I think that just sort of told in the end. And like I say, it wasn't his best performance by any means, but he wasn't awful up there. He didn't have an absolute stinker. It just got sort of outplayed by a really solid Littler.
It got away from him quick though, didn't it? I think like it was with Littler winning the ball and then taking that break of throw when he did. That meant that they went into that first break What was it? 4-1 up.
No, 7-3.
Oh, no, they broke after
We
10,
didn't break
didn't
till
they?
10, did we? Yeah, 7-3 up, and then obviously Bully broke coming out of the break, and you thought he's got a
We
chance.
thought the comeback. Yeah, is the comeback on?
And then didn't hold, and all of a sudden 8-4, and it's done in it at that point, basically.
Yeah, we all got a bit excited, I think, when he came back after the break, and we saw a break of throw, but then it just reverted immediately back to type. Yeah, it wasn't a particularly entertaining game. It wasn't particularly tense. Wasn't particularly exciting. But I think the best way to describe it is exactly what you said, Jack. Michael Smith was just a little bit flat during that game.
Can't really afford to do that on the biggest night of this tournament, either, can you? To rock up in the manner he did, but it was progression for the Nuke. Who do we have in the background? Mace. Beautiful. On to semi-final number 2 then. Michael van Gerwen against Luke Humphries. And again, this one a result that looks pretty one-sided. Both semi-finals finishing by the same scoreline, with the same names winning. Luke Humphries getting the better of Michael van Gerwen, this time 101 average for Cool Hand. Cam, what can you tell us about this one?
Basically exactly what we told you about the last game. It was so similar that we don't really need to go over it so much, do we? Like exactly the same as last time. It was 7-3 at the break. It went to 8-4 and it was over at that point. I think that's basically sums it up.
It was quite funny on the night because, like I say, it was the exact same score at the break. The game very much replicated. Other than what I will note is the standard from both players in this second semi-final was a bit higher. The doubling was markedly better.
Yeah,
we did see a bit more in terms of highlight reel checkouts. The 1-3-2 from Humphries was very nice. It was a more entertaining game to watch because it just seemed to be a little bit more going on. But yeah, very similar. Michael van Gerwen, I think we talked a lot, and I know we talked on Monday night about if Michael van Gerwen could find a version of himself that could match and go toe to toe with either of the Lukes at the moment, and he didn't quite. He couldn't find the game to push Humphries. I think Humphries was just in cruise control for most of it.
He was indeed. This is probably a good time. This is just going to get off tangent a little bit to talk about Van Gerwen. A lot's been made of his throwing action of late. He's spoken about the fact him and Vincent have been working together. We saw changes made perhaps a little this weekend on the Euro Tour. But it does seem to be a bit of an issue for Michael at the minute, considering the way he started this Premier League as well. Let's not forget, he won multiple nights in a row after Michael Smith's opening night victory. This rest of this campaign has tailed off for Michael van Gerwen pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly that. It sort of, at that point, it felt a bit business as usual in the Premier League, didn't it? That Michael van Gerwen turns up, and if Michael van Gerwen turns up, he wins, and he rattles through the league phase and then goes on and wins it on finals night. But it did change after that. And so we saw a run from Humphries of winning a few nights, saw a run from Little of winning a few nights. And it just felt throughout. If Michael van Gerwen didn't win that first game, if he did, he was going on and winning the night. But if he didn't, he was losing in the first game. He's not picking up points, and that's what left him to being sort of third in the table in the end. And just feeling a bit probably like he's struggling for form because there's a lot of nights where he's turning up for one game and then disappearing again.
Well, it's glimpses, isn't it? And I don't want to jump the gun because I know we'll come to it, but we saw that a little bit yesterday or over the weekend in the Euro Tour. There was the game he played against Danny Noppert. He looked unplayable. Like 75% on his doubles, like absolutely amazing. But it's glimpses, and then his B game will get him through in those in those Euro Tour events. He will come through rounds with his B game because he is still that good. But he won't come through Premier League games with his B game. So he's either on it and he's competitive, or they will just beat him. And that's exactly what happened with Humphries on Thursday. Michael van Gerwen wasn't quite able to get B+, so he didn't win.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating for him. Like turning up every other week and just going straight home again without any points and not getting the chance to rectify it and for another week. It's got to be tough, and I don't know whether that weighs on his mind a little bit, whether he's then overthinking it in between. And like I say, we've seen tweaks to his throw, his darts, and he's clearly doing things that we've not seen him do for a long, long time, and that he's trying to change things in his setup and in his throw.
Well,
it's probably as much as anything a confidence thing.
Darts is becoming different for Michael van Gerwen, and it's continuing to do so. And I know it's again, it's a topic for later on, but while we're just talking about Michael van Gerwen, with the results that happened over the weekend in the Euro Tour, he now finds himself outside the top 16 in the Pro Tour order of merit and no longer seeded for Euro Tour events. So if he's playing Euro Tours, he's playing on Fridays. Now, he's not used to that at all. He is not. I can't remember. I mean, how many years must it be since he had to play on a Friday?
Oh, I genuinely couldn't tell you. It's got to be.
I'm not sure he has. I'm not sure he's played on a Friday before.
I'm not sure this channel existed.
No. This is the thing, is that like darts in general as a sport and the way everything's set up and constructed is changing for Michael van Gerwen, and he's going to have to take it in his stride and adapt. I think he's fallen quite lucky timing wise, as he's not having to start play those Fridays during Premier League season, as we saw Littler do. Earlier this year, we were seeing Littler, God knows what time, getting out of Premier League venues, having to get some ungodly flight somewhere in order to play on the Friday. We're not going to see Michael van Gerwen having to do that, but he is going to have to play with the minnows on the Friday, isn't it? Down with the unseeded players, because that is the reality of where he finds himself. And when he's gone to try and reclaim those spots, it hasn't worked.
Is that what he needs, though? Does he need to not learn how to win again, but just build that up by using home nation qualifiers as a punch bag?
I don't know. When you're Michael van Gerwen, does that give you any confidence, just bashing someone up so far below you?
I don't think, because I think you might have a point, Gob. And only because what I would say to that, Cam, I think the problem with Michael van Gerwen at the minute has absolutely nothing to do with who he's playing. I don't think it matters who he's playing. But I think I would be more confident in him winning a game on a Saturday if he'd won a game on a Friday, just because I think the problem is his own action and his relationship with whichever darts he's throwing, and feeling settled in that, with what's going on. Maybe it might benefit him just because he gets on that stage with those set of darts and throws the board, if you like, irrelevant who he's throwing against, because let's be honest, even if he only finds his B game, 95 average for Michael van Gerwen, it's going to get him through most of those Fridays, most of. So it might be beneficial for him. Is it? I mean, it's odd to think that does Michael van Gerwen need more competitive darts? That's a really strange concept to think, but it could be the reality of where his game is at the minute.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we've spoken about his action. Phil sat down with Chris Mason earlier in the week. We've got a clip on just that bit. I want to play that now, just in case we don't get a chance to come back to that later in the show. So these are Mace's thoughts on the Green Machine at the moment.
But there is some interesting changes in his own words about, it was, I think, again, you touched on it Monday night. He used to say, look, they all know I'm the governor, I'm the daddy. Now it's more, they all know if I get it right, I can be competitive. So that's a bit of a worry. But listen, if he never won another thing in darts, he still will go down, depending on what generation you're from, either the GOAT or the second best player ever to tickle tungsten.
Tickle tungsten, love that.
That's nice.
Wasn't as in-depth about the throws I was expecting Mace in throw, but yeah.
Waited all the way to the end of that just to give me a little chuckle. That was very well played.
Tungsten. Right, we need to talk about the final then, because what an encounter this was. The two Lukes once again producing in a final. I don't want to get carried away here, but this is something that clearly we could see in a final very, very often for years to come right now. Easily the top 2 players on the planet right now, boys?
I don't think it's a question, is it, at the moment? I think it's quite clear that at the moment these two are head and shoulders above everyone else, and hence why they finished 1 and 2 in the league and then put on this final that they did. It's a really tough score, isn't it, when you're turning up and averaging over 102 and well over 50% on your doubles and you're getting slaps to 11-7. Like, these two are playing a different game to everyone else right now.
Yeah, and I think what was most impressive from both players, I include Humphries in this as well, is we saw them both play all right in the semi-finals. Except that Humphries played better in his semi-final. They've both played all right in recent weeks. We haven't seen monster, but we've seen maybe 1 ton-plus performance from Humphries in the last 6-7 weeks in the Premier League. Littler, we've seen his form be a bit in and out. We've seen magical things from him, but it's been in short bursts over the last few weeks. I think the headline is they both turned up for a final. Like both of them found, very special stuff.
It's not always easy, is it? Like, especially in your first on for Littler, and then he's got to wait for the semi-final and then get back up for the final. It's tough, and I think we saw it a lot during the season that when he came to his semi-final game, he wasn't as good a lot of the time.
He hasn't been. The math or the pattern and everything about the pattern of the Premier League tells us that everything that's in 16 weeks, Luke Littler will start amazingly and drop off as the night goes on. Luke Humphries will start average and work his way through the night upwards. So, 16 weeks told us that the opposite thing would happen in this final, and it's to the credit of Luke Littler. And we've run out of positive things, haven't we? We'd only be repeating ourselves, which probably we should. What's interesting is I've been saying since January on this channel that Luke Littler is the bookie's favourite with every bookie for Sports Personality of the Year, and only this week has anyone else sort of picked it up and started saying it in the general conversation of the media. But I've been saying it since January.
It was 4-1 for it before the end of the Worlds.
Just
ridiculous, and a great time to get on if anyone did.
And we'll probably have a chat about match play qualifications later on, but let's be honest. Realistically, if these two are on opposite sides of the bracket come the match play, then you wouldn't bet against this being the match play final as well, would you? And you wouldn't, and thinking, well, we could have, World Championships, Premier League, and match play, same final 3 times. The 3 majors, or the Triple Crown, as they like to call it.
I will keep that. My internet may be crap, maybe you will be gone. I don't exist.
Threw it out, got a bite. But no, but obviously that is interesting that Luke Littler is going into the match play unseeded. First time ever a Premier League champion's gone to the match play unseeded. It's bizarre. I mean, it's completely bonkers, isn't it? But it's the system that we have. But just amazing, brilliant final. We watched it live on the channel. It was thoroughly enjoyable. I've not spoken to. I'd love to know what it did in terms of, and somebody wiser than I might know, what it done in terms of figures, watchers, viewing figures, what that was like compared to Premier Leagues gone by. My expectation is the numbers probably dwarf.
I imagine it'll be the biggest number for a Premier League final we've ever seen.
I assume by some way, I would have thought within 12 months, we've probably gone a long way. It
was with the World's final, wasn't it? And I can't see this being any different, to be fair.
No.
Correct. But I also turn both of your attention to the stat about how much revenue was lost from the boxing.
Well, yeah, that is true. But 18 million people or 20 million people or whatever it was watching it on days that weren't as easy.
Because of that, Gob, they could only pay the fighters £100 million. It breaks my heart.
I mean, in this cost of living crisis, you can't afford to be only being paid £100 million. That's my fee for tonight.
I mean, bloody hell.
That's how much I've paid for internet by the looks of
I
it.
didn't know you were on that little, to be honest. I thought they were looking after you.
Last minute call up, and
Yeah, that's
just
what it
get
is.
the bottom of the barrel and just got the cheapest one in.
Any port in a storm.
That's it.
But no, like really good. Brilliant Premier League finals night. Very entertaining. We'll be doing a watch long again, I think. It was good fun to have everybody involved. Let's just see how long it takes before we end up getting stuck into conversations about format for next year and who's going to be in it next year and who deserves it and who doesn't deserve it. I think there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the two finalists this year will be returning next year, and that hasn't always happened in recent years. That hasn't always happened in recent years. We've seen people make the final and then not be invited back the following year, but I don't think there's any risk of that being the case this time around.
No.
We'll hold that thought for a minute, Dan. First of all, we're going to hear from each of the finalists. We'll start with our winner, Luke Littler, and then we may well just have a discussion on the format.
I don't know what to do with the trophy. I obviously give it to the crowd a bit and seeing the family, but no, I don't know what to do on there. I could do, but I'm just enjoying it at the moment. I know I've won this tonight, but I'm just really enjoying it. Oh wow. It's just another achievement, and like Abby said, me and Phil Taylor have only hit a 9 on the Premier League as well as the World Series.
That was my
So
start
casual.
on Thursday.
How are you so casual about those sort of things? But no, it just comes with the territory now of
I
the
think he
17
genuinely just
year old.
doesn't know what to say at the moment. I think that's what it is. Like, I think he's shocked by it, and he's just kind of like, I don't know. So just rolling with it because I
What
can't.
again? What do you want me to say? Like,
yeah,
it's like shelling peas to the lad. Interestingly, we did get to hear from the runner-up, and actually, a lot of time we feel that these interviews probably give you a little bit more depth. This one is about 2 minutes long, but it is a really, really good piece from the world #1 world champion and Premier League runner-up, Luke Humphries.
Yeah, but it will get to that point one day. I think everybody's like desperate to see him win, and everybody wants to see Luke Littler win. It'll get to the point where probably people in 10 years' time will probably end up being like Phil Taylor, and no one wants to see him win anymore because he wins everything, and that's what the unfortunate events that happen. But he's won his first major title. We all knew it was coming. We didn't know when it was going to be, but it was always going to happen. But he is, of course, he's beatable. He's definitely beatable. But tonight he wasn't, and he was. If we look at it as a whole, he was definitely the deserved a champion, and I'm sure he'll win many, many more. Yeah, but you're talking about boxers that don't punch each other's heads off all the time. We're dart players. There's a complete difference.
Fair point. But you seem to be the best of enemies, shall we say?
Yeah, because what's the point of animosity in this game? If you walk into a room and you have animosity against someone, it's not a nice place to be around. We're around each other all the time. I don't want to have that animosity towards him. I'm sure he'll come in and tell you he doesn't have that animosity around me. We just get along, and that sometimes happens in the sport. There's many sportsmen that they just don't get along because they're enemies, because they think that each other's better than the other. I don't think we think each other's better than the other. We both know how good we are. But we have utmost respect, and I love that about him a lot, because if he didn't have that respect for me, I would feel a little bit hurt, because obviously I've achieved a lot more than he has, but he's got that respect for me, which I like, and I've got that respect for him, because we both get along really well. We both relish each other's talent.
Is there anything you can try to put him off his stride?
No, there isn't, because I wouldn't want
speeding
to.
up or slowing down or getting his head a bit?
No, because I wouldn't want to do that. That's not cheating, but I don't want to put him off, because at the end of the day, if I do things like that I've had against me, I'm trying to do things that's not natural. I'd rather beat him at his best, and I think he'd rather beat me at his best. If I do things to put him off, what does that make me? It doesn't make me a real champion, does it? I want to play him when he's at his best. I would never ever try and put any player off, let alone Luke. If I was to beat him tonight, it probably would have been at his best. So I would have walked away and been so proud that I beat him at his best, rather than trying to put him off, because I wouldn't want to do that.
I absolutely love that from Luke Humphries.
Yeah.
First of all, what a impeccable runner-up, and the way that he carries himself is absolutely first rate. The fact that still walks into venues and gets booed is completely beyond me. But I thought he spoke incredibly well there. Got rid of some nonsense questions, but spoke properly solid. Carried himself really well and wants to play the game the right way. There isn't anything more you can ask from Humphries in that situation.
No, it's exactly that. That's how he's been for a long time now. But the more and more we're seeing him interview, because the more he's winning things and the more he's spending time on the stage, he speaks really well and he comes across really well. There's all this nonsense that he's boring, this, that, and the other that everyone labelled at him for a long time. He's not at all. And actually, he's probably one of the players that I like to see interviewed more than anyone, because he gives you a really good insight, but he articulates himself really well as well. And it's just a genuinely good character, and the sort of character that you want a sport built around.
You do sometimes have to do a bit of a filter when people use the word boring about someone. That actually what they mean is not a dickhead.
Yeah,
and he does, he comes across as someone, but also I think, and he highlights some interesting points, and a few that, like, it is a sport. This isn't gladiatorial, and there are, and I accept, and we do need to just accept that in any sport there are people whose mindset, like their motivation, their ability to put themselves into the mind space that they need to compete at their best, is they've almost got to turn their opponents into their enemies. We've seen that with, we've heard footballers, cricketers, we've heard golfers, all sorts of successful sportsmen. But that's very much a mindset process. And clearly the two. But I mean, let's be honest, we've seen that from big dart players. We've seen that from Peter Wright and Michael van Gerwen and Gerwyn Price in recent years, where in order to try and get themselves up for it, they've become a bit gladiatorial with others. The two best players in the world at the moment aren't like that. They are very much seem to be relishing the competition. I'd also think it's easier to hold that point of view when you are the world champion and the world number one. Like, it's an easier, if you're scrapping around for fourth place and don't know if you're going to be a Premier League pick and you've not won anything, you defended loads of money this year. Like, it's much harder to have that really laid back, nice attitude where everyone's your friend. But it's refreshing, and he speaks very well. And I think it's good for the sport. The more time that people can put a camera and a microphone in front of Luke Humphries, the better it is for darts as a sport.
Yeah, absolutely that. Like I say, the whole making someone your enemy sort of thing. It obviously works for some people, but I don't really get it, because anytime I play sport, the one person I want to beat more than anyone is my best mate. I don't need to make it an enemy thing to beat him. If I'm playing someone that I don't know or someone I don't particularly like, I'm probably not as up for it. But if I'm playing my best mate, I'm not letting him get one over on me. Yeah. I think that's, like I say, it's refreshing to see that they clearly get on, but that brings them both up to a level where they're both playing the best, because they both want to bash each other up as well.
Indeed. Right, that's the final done. Let's have a talk about the Premier League this campaign in general. The first time we've seen BetMGM up as the title sponsors. I actually thought the aesthetics of the Premier League looked really good this year.
Yeah.
Gorgeous stage. Really lovely stage. Nice that they, and we know that there's loads of different views that people can take on bookmakers sponsoring sport. I thought it was good that they properly involved themselves. They didn't just paint everything their colour and say this is our event. They actively did something on a weekly basis, promoted something through their website, put an offer on, allowed people to access that offer, and the W odds thing was great. Gave us something a little bit to talk about on the stream. But aesthetically, I mean, we sat in the stadium, didn't we? Sat in a couple this year, but and the huge sort of screens with roaring lions moving about on them, and I think the general colour, whole aesthetic was brilliant. Loved it.
Indeed. A good point from George here. He said one thing with Humphries when he complains about the breeze draft won't affect all players, not just him. Can't he tweak his equipment to prevent this issue? I mean, the problem is that darts is such a sport of minute margins, and when you are so set with a throw, he could go and pick up a heavier set of darts, right? But then the balance
as long with a stem on it,
and then he might have to change his stem to get them to land the same way. And then he's got to throw them harder to get through the air. The point is that is in the environment that darts should be played in the first place. Yes, it will affect all players, but actually someone like Nathan Aspinall, who throws a dart that's 2 grams heavier and throws it probably twice the pace that Luke Humphries does, is less likely to get hit through the air and deviate off course anywhere near as much as it would affect someone like Luke Humphries, who's got a little bit more of a loopy throw. And that's the issue. Like, darts shouldn't be played in a wind turbine.
Let's be honest, it's never a wind turbine, is it? Don't get me and Mr. Simpson started again on a bit of a draft, because we will go on a run about it again. If you want to get paid the big money, you're gonna have to play in big arenas, and sometimes it'll be drafty. So just get on with it. But yeah, it sounds like the Premier League's absolutely built for Ryan Searle and his 31-gram bombs.
That's it. Like,
No,
is that what we see?
He's gonna win the Premier League with a record point score and a record average in the final.
Even more so if he spends the afternoon just wandering around the arena propping doors open. Ryan Searle,
all of them.
Ryan Searle turns up just a bag full of door stops.
Yeah,
he just wanders around all afternoon.
Just a screwdriver. He's taken all the hinges off and just taken all the doors off.
It's
Took
just
them all with him.
Wind flowing around everywhere, and his darts just rattling in the treble 20.
I want to throw back to this one quickly before we talk more a little bit about Premier League. Shelty said, does it really matter if Luke Littler is not seeded for the match play? Excuse my ignorance on this. It's not that it doesn't matter.
Not to him.
Not the way he's playing, no.
Obviously, the concept of seeding is that your top-ranked players avoid each other in earlier rounds, and then it matches up further down the tournament bracket. The difficulty you're going to have with Luke Littler being unseeded and Martin Schindler at the moment and Gary Anderson is there are players who are in better form, who are playing better darts, who are then going to run into the top seeds, who by their ranking should be protected from playing a player of that caliber in the first round. But that's the difficulty with a 2-year ranking. Like, you take the tennis at the moment right now, Rafael Nadal is the greatest clay court player that ever lived and has just played world number 3 Alexander Zverev in the first round of the French Open.
Yeah.
So you could feasibly, I mean, you could have a quarter bracket of the match play that contains Luke Humphries, Stephen Bunting, and Luke Littler, and Gary Anderson,
or Martin Schindler, who's won a Euro Tour.
It's absolutely, and having. No, all the players that are there obviously have earned a right to be there. But let's be honest, we do look, and we do it every year. We look at predicting the match play, and it's fairly common that we go through those first round predictions, and it's rare we don't pick a seed to come through, isn't it? Because they're the top 16 players in the world, and they're better than everybody else is. And those others from the Pro Tour order of merit, that's often, let's be honest, someone that's done a bit, gone deep a few times in a Pro Tour events, might have won one, picked up some, but they haven't established themselves, within that top. I mean, we've got Richie Edhouse is in there, and he's done a bloody good job to get there, by the way. He's had a really good year so far. But Richie Edhouse is ranked 46 in the world. And Richie Edhouse is going to be a name that many of the seeds will be slightly more relieved to see, because it doesn't say Luke Littler when it comes out of the draw.
100%. Right, let's talk format on the Premier League. Obviously, this year they kept it with the 8 players, a winner on the night. We had that as a group stage, etc., etc. I think most people know my thoughts on this. 2 questions, really. 1, would you make any changes to the format next year? And 2, if so, what would they be?
Yes. I think I talked a little bit about it last week. I know I will endure an awful lot of ridicule for saying this sentence. I don't dislike the format. I quite enjoy the format. I like it in the stadium, and I don't dislike it on the TV. And I like the format. I like the knockout format, winner on the night, etc., etc. What I don't like about the format is, like we've seen in previous years, and we've seen the Premier League not destroy careers, but we've seen it force people into a big step back. and we've seen people disadvantaged by becoming the whipping boy of the Premier League. What the old format had was it allowed you to get out after 7, 8 weeks. And if you were Peter Wright and Gerwyn Price this year, that's the way that your campaign's going. You're out the door once you've played everybody, and you're not having to endure that for 16 whole weeks. I think the idea that you get someone now, it does happen this year that the two players that it happened to were experienced former world champions. That, and I know it sounds silly to say, that could have been Luke Littler. It could have been Chris Dobie last year. And what you then do is you've tied them up for 16 weeks of enduring that constantly. And I love the idea of keeping the format if we can, going up to 12, dropping it to 8 after night 11. I think Lendl mentioned that the other day. When we talked about it last week, that's my proposal, is going up to 12.
Work it with 12 though for the nights.
See, now there's a way to get around this. Either there's been a couple of suggestions last year where you have 2 banks of 8 and you rotate and whatever. For me, the Premier League needs a little bit of jeopardy, right? You need a get out. You need somebody eliminated early doors. And I've sort of half pinched this idea from Mace, to be honest. You start with 12 players.
Yeah.
12's the magic number. I think everyone agrees 12's the magic number.
You can't keep this format with 12. It doesn't work.
You can, though, because what you do is, for 11 weeks, you play the old format.
Yeah, you can do it that way, but
Then when you go to 8...
And then you relegate 4 players.
And then you play knockouts.
And then for the rest of it, you go back to this format where you have a winner on each night. So instead of it being accumulating 2 points for a win, you've made it through to the second stage. And even if you were bottom getting through that second stage, you can now earn 5 points tonight and jump straight back up in contention for the playoffs.
Well, see, I would adopt exactly that format, although I would do something probably even more radical, is that when you drop to 8 and go to knockouts, I'd wipe the league.
Yeah, you've qualified.
You basically get the chance to earn more to catch up, because that's the point. And then you've got to go chasing night wins.
No, I'm quite like, I prefer Dan's version.
Yeah, flatten it back to 0. Your first 11 week you are playing to be there. It's like you've got, because I like that you've in that format you've got the league, you've got the Premier League phase where
it's essentially like the Champions League almost. You get through your group and then
but then what you've got is you've got this period that's almost like a bit finalsy, like where you're playing knockouts and it starts at 0. You've got to get your way into finals night, and it becomes like the race to finals night. After that, you have this league phase, and then if you've earned your spot, you've got it's like the best way I can describe it is it's like, and I'm not a fan at all, but you two are, American football. You play your league phase. And if you do well in your league phase, you get to the playoffs, and that's that week 11 to 6. Then you're in the playoffs, and you earn your spot in finals night, and there you are. And that's the format I would go, because it allows for people an out when they're having a complete stinker and they're not getting dragged along for 16 weeks. I think it adopts all of the elements of the various different, and then it's the look of the draw. Like if you might be in Manchester and you might see the league phase, or you might be in Leeds and you might see the knockouts. Really, let's be honest, it's not the purest crowd that we're looking that are filling these arenas. Most of the people in there don't give a toss with the format they're watching. Most of them. So I just think that would be my.
What I've just come up with now is an extra 2 weeks on the Premier League, because it's 11 to get through the league phase and then 7 to play everybody once in the first round of the format we have currently.
So that makes it even longer than it is already.
Yeah, but it's better, so no one cares it's longer.
Is it better though? Because in that league phase at the start, is that better than having a nightly winner? I'm not sure it is. I like the nightly winner format.
I think what it does, and what is crucial for me, and what I really don't like about the Premier League at the moment is, and I get that the Premier League exists to draw in new fans or the casuals or whatever else you want to call it for in the venues, and even perhaps watching on
Yeah,
TV.
of
And it's
course
the
they are.
biggest opportunity outside of Christmas to draw in new people to watch a sport on a Thursday night. But what it does for me is it takes the shine off the entirety of the rest of the year because these matchups aren't special anymore.
They are if you watch that final.
Final
And the rest of them, they're still special.
for the first time in a PDC TV event. They've met like 8 times since.
Yeah, but
When Barney made the jump over from the BDO to the PDC, him playing Phil Taylor was a big deal because 1, they were big rivals, but 2, it barely bloody happened. So when it did happen, you got to make a big deal out of it. You got to make a huge deal out of the first time they played in the World Championship and then in the UK Open and whatever else. But then they play each other twice in the Premier League and maybe once in a major. You might see Barney v Taylor on TV 3 times in a year.
Is that not something you just have to accept as a sign of the times? Like if you think of like that you do see all sport, not just darts, like you see more of everything per year because if you go back 30 years, then you only got to watch one football match a year, and that was the FA Cup. The FA Cup was really important, and like it's just sort of. I think that's just the way that time is progressing. You could say it about anything. You could look at the women's darts and you could say, right, well, the top 2 women's darts are Fallon and Bow. How many times a year do they play each other?
Yeah,
Can lose count, wouldn't you?
Anyone sit there on Thursday night?
You know what I mean? You'd lose count, and then you get things like cricket and golf. Like, well, these people are playing constantly against each other, aren't they? Yes, I appreciate they're not paired up together. Like tennis, I use tennis a lot as an example. I appreciate the sport's very different, but it's because it's a pro tour. People with tour cards and managing their diaries and which events they are and aren't playing in. So I think it's quite an easy one to sort of draw a few parallels to. If you look at tennis and look at how often the best players in the world meet each other a year, well, it's all the time because they've beaten everybody else. Like, it wouldn't happen so much if other people were that good. You can't just not run events in case they meet each other. If you've got bored of it, then you've got bored of the sport.
You look at tennis and you look at the big 4, right? You look at Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Murray. They weren't running into in every event.
Not far off.
One of the others was taking each other out.
Those top 4 were generally, once you got towards the semi-finals, more often than not, most of them were there and playing each other.
There was very few occasions where those 4 were the final 4 for one reason or another. You may have got one of those matchups, but that's what made it special. Okay, this final is Djokovic versus Federer. The next time we go to a tournament, it might be Murray versus Nadal. That was what made that era special. At the moment, it's just like, well, I've seen Luke v. Luke 9 times. That's what I'm getting at. Like,
on Thursday night, when they were going at it, did you at any point or anyone else watching it go, oh, this is bobbins, they've played each other 8 times already? Or did everyone sit there and go, this is absolutely...
The build-up's less interesting. And the build-up for the rest of the season is now less interesting because they're not...
How many times?
9 times.
How many times?
If it's the final of every event and play each other, then you're not going to get bored of it because they're the best 2 players in the world.
You are.
How many times have you watched Liverpool play Man United?
Too many.
Is it ever any less special?
You still get excited for it though, don't you?
Go up to Scotland and watch the Old Firm 47 times a season. Is it any less of an event every time it happens? No, it's not. Look at them fans every single time.
Disagree. By the end of the season, you're going to be bored of some of these matchups because we've seen them. It's not just this season either. Like, we've seen that matchup 9 times, right? Like I said, Taylor v Barney was special because it happened 2-3 times a year. Within 3 years, we're going to have seen Humphries v
15 years. We've still seen it 45 times before the last time they played. And still people wanted to watch it.
It takes the shine off it. Well, it does for me. It might not for you two. You could sit there and watch the same thing over and over again.
What's the answer?
You're at it. Go and watch the entirety of Friends from start to finish 6 million times because nothing else exists.
But what's the answer then? Because you've got 2 players that are miles ahead of everybody else in the world.
We have to leave one of them out every tournament.
Which is part of the format debate. We need to get rid of competitions on the night at the minute because they're running into each other too often. In a league phase, they play each other once or twice at most.
if we go back to the league phase, do we bring back draws? I did like a draw.
Yeah. They're
You'd
good
have
for points,
to.
those.
Yeah,
Really
they were
If you're in
good.
league phase,
They were good for betting on.
you're gonna. I think you'd have to do it. You'd have to have draws, wouldn't you? Otherwise, it's not a particularly good league.
Although, so this is where our interviews come into good play. Phil also had this conversation with Wayne Mardle the other day, and he said he'd go back to 12 players in a league phase, but he'd scrap draws. And the reason being is under the old format, we used to play 5 games a night. Obviously,
The
now
reason
we play
being is he's
7
not
games.
a degenerate gambler.
No, we used to play 5 games a night in the old format with 10 players. Now, obviously, we play 7 games a night. But the difference between now and then is a match in the format currently can end 6-1. If you play for a draw and a player only gets to 6, they've still got the chance to win 5 more legs at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. I mean, yeah.
Keeping a draw in play extends the night significantly, which is an issue for the broadcaster.
Well, not if you drop it down. You just shorten the game slightly. And it draws 5-all instead of 6-all.
But are you really going to sit there and say that your Premier League format is best of 10, as Lendl just suggested, which technically is shorter format than your Pro Tour?
But
If you're going to have 6 games on a night, then yeah, you're going to have to.
It's whatever.
Are you really going to sit here and say one of your Triple Crown events, fuck you, Dan, stupid phrase, is played over a format shorter than your Pro Tour?
Well, it's only in the league phase, though. The final's not played over that, is it? The final's played over and the semi-final played over a much longer phase.
Yeah.
I think there'll be endless debate, but I do think we will get a change. Whether that's a tweak or a complete rework, I would be very, very shocked if we go into next year's Premier League with exactly the same format and 8 players that we've seen in the last couple of years. I think the PDC.
I won't be shocked at all because it's what they do. And then they'll tell you that the numbers here were brilliant because Luke was involved and Darts having a massive spike, and say it must be the format, it must be their marketing, and it must be because the players are the most recognisable players and they're what everybody wants to see. Not the fact that Peter Wright has delivered in this format more than twice in 10 attempts. Not the fact that Gerwyn Price has done 3 interviews since and slagged off the Premier League to high water once again. He won on the Euro Tour at the weekend and decided, because the Premier League's crap and I don't want to play there again next year. Like, it just isn't for some people, but I bet they still persist with them if they want to.
Yeah, and I absolutely guarantee you that Gezi takes it next year if he gets offered it. Because there's too much money on offer, and that at the end of the day, that's all he's playing for at the moment. He doesn't care about it.
Well, 60 grand from turning up and being a winner.
No, but if you don't win it, potentially 350 grand, 380 grand, whatever you want to get to. Like,
Yeah, but you still sell out Cardiff without him, don't you?
Oh yeah, no, you will still sell out Cardiff without him, but I'm talking about his point of view. He's going to want to play in it because he's also going to get more sponsorships because it's the second most looked at tournament as well.
It'll sell out long before they've announced anybody in it.
Most of it, yeah.
You won't get a seat for the Premier League next year. You will not get a seat for the Premier League. You won't be able to get a ticket. They'll all be on resale sites for a disgusting amount of money.
Yeah, because you know that both Luke's are going to be there.
We need to rename this the Cynical Podcast because we don't do any actual debate.
Just bring in a championship just below it of the Premier League. Another 8 players that are just fun to watch and just bash each other up every week, like the championship in football. And then after your 11 weeks or your 8 weeks or whatever, you relegate 2 from the top one, put 2 in from the bottom one, and they've got a chance to go and get night wins and get themselves into finals now.
The difficulty with that, though, Cam, is you'll do it for a year, and people are that pedantic and that sort of desperate to just cause problems and devilment that what you'll end up with is people coming back and saying, well, actually, can we have like a League One under the Championship?
Yeah.
And then
let's be honest, you wouldn't sell out another night the night before on a Wednesday that's called Championship League Darts. Like, it just wouldn't sell out.
And relegation, it's just never going to happen because it's not commercially viable. Right? That doesn't make them any sort of money. Right.
Should we just do away with the whole people get invited or they pick people they want and you qualify for it by being good, and then it actually matters on your ranking as well?
No. Right, nice little segue, by the way. Obviously, we did play you a clip earlier of Chris Mason chatting about Michael van Gorenthrow. We touched there on Gerwyn Price's comments in the last few days since he was eliminated from the Premier League and have backed up on Euro Tour this week. These are Chris Mason's thoughts on the Iceman.
And it would be a loss. I think he's absolutely box office. He's right up there with some of the greatest Welsh players of all time. But he just doesn't see. I just don't think he loves the game, and I don't. If you know that saying, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life, and I worry. I do worry for him, and I'm just not sure he's got. Listen, he's got the passion for winning. He is a sportsman, and he loves to win. But you know, and it's a tired phrase, but hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard, and he is ultimately talented. But does he have that desire? Does he want to put the hard yards in? Or if you're going to tournaments thinking, oh, here we go again, another flight, no, you're not going to get the best out of you. And I just want to see him. You see him a lot do exhibitions. I've been there. I've done a few with him, and he's got a smile on his face, and he loves it. And more often than not, we see him produce some of his best darts. And maybe some sports psychology would do him good. Maybe just a different attitude. Listen, he's made his dough. He certainly ain't short of a few quid. Why not just say, do you know what? For the next year, I'm just going to have some fun with it. Listen, this is speculative for me. You know what I think of him. I think he's an asset to the sport. He's another player that brought a different dimension that we haven't seen probably since the days of Bristow and Jockey and Alan Evans. And I like I said, I think he's an asset to the sport, and he's been an asset to the sport. But I worry if that ultimately, I think being bothered is probably not the right kind of word, but it'd be interesting to see what he does. And I think, you know, Ronnie O'Sullivan had a similar attitude, didn't he, for a while, and then he worked with Peters, and he managed to find a way of changing the mindset and the mentality, and maybe that's something that Gezi would benefit from, because he is incredibly talented, and when he's on it, I mean, he is a joy to watch.
Big thanks, first of all, to the cleaner for covering up snow patrols. All clear now that you are in the background of that one. But look, some
Ilkeston Fun Fair is getting some attention tonight as well. That's a very well placed poster. We should be invoicing them.
We've got another one to play in a bit on the WDF, and I'll tell you what, he's sat in exactly the same spot, so they're going to get another 2 minutes 12 of fame. Lovely pub, by the way. The host of our first ever Live Lounge Live. Don't forget, we will have a second one coming up soon, hosted by the one and only Mr. Dan Simpson.
6th of July.
Correct. And talking of live lounges with different guests, Will's in the chat room from USA Darts. He'll be producing the live lounge on Wednesday. Don't forget, we do have a very special show coming to you from New York City. Phil is over there with the CDC boys. Himself and Anthony will be hosting with an array of guests. So if you are in NYC for the US Darts Masters, make sure you head down and check that out, or it'll be here on YouTube. So because of that, I'll probably get this in now. We're not going to go too in depth on the US Darts Masters this evening. That being said, in 20 minutes time, we may have run out of things to say. We may look to that, but we're going to leave that to those boys in the main part. We're going to try and discuss. We've got the Euro Tour to talk about. We might even have a look at the race to the match play. The World Masters has been announced, and a lot of the pairs for the World Cup of Darts, my favourite tournament, was announced quite recently as well. So we'll have a discussion on some of the new teams in that, some omissions from some teams, some last-minute spots being caught up. Brendan Dolan was involved in a really good race this weekend as part of the Euro Tour as well. That being said, where do we go next, boys?
Euro Tour, do we think? Or do you want to do... Euro
Should we do one more, mate? To get that bit out of the way. So that was Mace on Gerwyn Price. Interestingly, by the way, as I said earlier, Phil has also sat down with a number of people over the last few weeks. One of those was Wayne Mardle. We compared his format on the Premier League earlier. Mardle has a very similar opinion, I think, on Gerwyn Price at the moment. A little bit concerned about the fact he missed a week in the Premier League, and very much a warning that the minute you get yourself out of the club, it's very difficult to get yourself back into the club for things like the World Series, the Premier League, etc., etc. So check that one out on our YouTube channel in full when you're done with us this evening. Mardal, Mason, and a host of players, including Nathan Aspel's reaction to being eliminated from the Premier League in 5th place, are all available on the YouTube channel. Right, let's hear from Mace one more time then. It is around the recent announcement from the WDF on the World Masters return.
It's no longer the World Masters.
I'm told not. It'll be the same format as it was before.
Yeah, it's lost its identity. It's lost its credibility. Good luck to anyone who wins the tournament. Still great to be on that list of names, but just get the Worlds right, and then we're about doing other tournaments. Are they going to have any financial gain out of it, the WDF?
But they haven't announced. Again, we're still waiting for.
Are they going to make a bundle of money that they can reinvest into the sport? No. It's just no one listens. So, I think I don't get it. At least they've advertised Lakeside earlier this year, and ticket sales are looking good, and the fact that it's staying at Lakeside for another year. Are they looking for another venue? Have they got sponsors? Have they got a TV deal? Has the Masters got a TV deal? They worry about secondary. Oh, let's just get out there. We got a tournament. Well, what kind of tournament? You know, is it worth the players travelling the globe to get the ranking points to get in it? Is it worth it? How far have they got to go to just break even for the year? I don't know. But no one listens, so I don't talk about it anymore.
Do you think this is potentially the last year at Lakeside then?
Don't care. Don't care. It's just lost. I'll remember it when it was great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
It was great. Even when it was up against the then WDC and then the PDC. It had its flaws, but it's still. It was romantic, wasn't it?
100%, yeah.
And the venue was, although again, like I've said before, it's not that. It just got that nostalgia.
Yeah.
And I'll just remember it for what it is, because I don't know, the way it's broadcast and presented. It breaks me heart. Breaks me heart, because this is where it all started.
Pretty damning from Mace on the state of the WDF, including that announcement about the World Masters. Has been announced that it will be in Hungary. A little bit of a surprise, that one. I wasn't expecting that when it was announced.
Which is actually what you want. Like if you're paying €500 to a quarter finalist, like have it in Hungary. Fucking mental.
Makes so much sense, doesn't it? Like, it's not like they're just trying to blindly do it on a whim or anything.
Oh, it's difficult for I agree with every single sentiment that Mace has put across. I do find it genuinely difficult to talk about without feeling like I'm just sticking the boot in, because it's hard to. It's genuinely hard. I find it's genuinely hard to give an honest opinion and analysis of what I think on it without someone being able to snip it out and go like, he's just really going in on them. And because you look at and I get there are financial limitations to what you can do in terms of a prize fund, but the boy. So girls, let's look girls semi-finalist prize is €100.
It's not going to get you there and back to make a semi-final.
That
pay for your beer while you're there.
They won't. I shit you not. That will not pay the airport.
Girls are underage.
That will not pay the airport. Right, but it won't pay the airport parking. It literally will not pay to park the car at the airport while you fly there.
Yeah.
You've had Luton,
or you fly.
And I get that there are not everyone.
Other methods of transport to the airport.
not everyone's coming from the UK. Right, great. So why not then, if you're going to do it in somewhere that isn't in the UK, have it somewhere really, really central in the middle of Europe that people can easily get to on the very, very impressive transport network that is in the middle of or that spans across the EU. Having it in Hungary, I've been to Budapest quite a few times. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. I couldn't recommend it enough for a weekend away or longer.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely not the venue that I would have picked. There are 50 European cities that I would have considered before this. And one of them's Sunderland. Like, that's how I feel about how mad this is. I'd have had it in Sunderland before I'd have done it.
Got to fill the stadium alight somehow, haven't we, Dan?
No,
honestly, I'd have had it. I would have had it in Sunderland.
You cannot take someone to Sunderland and expect to only give them €100. That is basically
what, you get easy chips for £1.
Yeah, I mean, what? You can win the girls' semi-finalists and buy a house. Like in Sunderland, what do you mean? Like,
you can't get having to buy a house in Sunderland. That's not fair on people.
You could become a homeowner, but no, I just think it's and I said it last week, and I think Mesa said the same thing. It irks me a little bit that we have to call it the World Darts Masters and pretend that it's the same tournament. Like, genuinely, everyone that goes there and competes in it, I wish them the absolute best of luck. Like, I know some of the people who are going over to play in that tournament, and I hope they have a really good tournament and come back with a bag full of money. Like, because there ain't many bags full of money. Yeah, because there ain't many bags full of money to be had. And I can give you a few recommendations on bars to visit while you're out there. But if we can to collude in the illusion that this is, the tournament that we watched Martin Adams win 3 on the spin of in the late noughties and everything else, all of the history in this tour. We've seen Barney and we've seen Michael van Gerwen and we've seen Duzzer and we've seen everybody else that's done it over the years. To collude in the illusion that this is the same tournament is absurd.
It's just not, is it? Like, and I think that's the thing. If you try and look at it as being, it's just going to piss you off, essentially, isn't it? It's because it just isn't. And you just look at it, it's a new tournament and it's something different. And it's an opportunity for people to go and win a big trophy. But let's be honest, it's not what it used to mean.
I think, first of all, I agree completely about transport, whereas to try and put a positive spin on it a little, Budapest and Hungary itself does seem to be a country that is growing. You look at the Euro Tour there in particular over the last couple of years, it's been well attended, right? So there's certainly
it's not difficult to get to, and it's not an expensive flight. And it
depends where you go from. It's cheap if you go from Luton. If you go from, well, I don't know, many other places, Australia, New Zealand.
Well, yeah, everything's pretty expensive from there. Unless you put it in the same city in Australia, it's going to be expensive.
You can't get directly into the country, can you?
You fly change at Frankfurt anyway, don't they?
That's where you've got to go to Schiphol. And you've got to no, it's a stupid idea.
The other thing is the format. That is the one key takeaway for me here. They changed that previously. It got an incredible amount of backlash. The format is synonymous with the name of the tournament. It is the World Masters because it is sets of 3. It is short, it is sharp, it is brutal. It can change a game like that. We all love set play. We all know how brutal it is. And that's when it's best of 5 legs in a set in the Grand Prix and the World Championships. You make that best of 3 and a game can go like that. You can see a 3-0 lead eradicated in absolutely no time whatsoever. That's what made the World Masters special. And the fact that after seeing the backlash last year, and I know that it's done so they can get more people there for a group stage and try and raise entries and whatever else, and you invite all the former champions, and isn't this a brilliant celebration? But that format has to return. Look, even if it's not right at the start of the tournament, even if when you're doing a group stage to try and eliminate people and whatever, that doesn't exist and it's just straight leg play. At some point, when you make a stage of this tournament that would conceivably be televised or streamed, i.e. a 64 onwards or a 32 onwards or whatever else, that format has to return. That final has to be won over that format. And that's the real pain for me in this. Like, is it brilliant that the WDF have announced that there is a second major returning to their calendar? It should be. More darts at grassroots level, amateur level, semi-pro level, or whatever else you want to call it, should be celebrated. But the issue is the prize fund is 15 grand less than Andreas Harrysson won 2 nights ago in Portsmouth for the winner. The format no longer exists, and we're not sure what the quality of production is going to be like again. And all of that means that we're sat here debating, or like Dan said, feeling like we're sticking the boot into something that should have been quite positive news.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's it. And it just makes it really hard, doesn't it, to try and be positive about it, because there is so much that's not being done right with it. And let's be honest, we are all a set of 3 miserable bastards, which doesn't help. But I don't think this is so much us. I think everyone's kind of feeling the same about it, that it doesn't feel right putting the name to it because of everything else that's going along with it.
Also, and I know this is just a side observation. If you take the men's and the women's rankings, the top 30 of each, so that's 60 players. So the top 60 players of both genders in the WDF rankings, there is 1 Hungarian player.
Is that...
And it is right that they're being celebrated that they get to play at all.
Veronica Ilhas?
No. It is...
he won the singles on... Is it a man or a woman?
Hold on, I've come out of it now. Let me go back.
Is it a man or a woman?
It's a fella.
Then it would...
Oh, it's Patrick Kovacs.
Kovacs. Is he a man?
Who isn't he, if I remember rightly, Patrick Kovacs, isn't he not Hungarian but plays out of Hungary?
Oh, now you've opened up a can of worms.
I'm convinced we saw this guy at a Euro Tour this year, didn't we? We definitely saw him at a Euro Tour. You might have more information than me, Lendl, or more up to date anyway. I'm just using whatever I've Googled while we've been talking.
Hang on. Patrick Kovacs. No, he was born in Hungary.
Oh, good on him. Oh, comes out to Let's Get It Started by the Black Eyed Peas. I take it all back. Put him on last. No, put him on first.
Put him on last in Hungary. Right?
We've all
changed our opinion on it. We're quite happy for him being Hungary and be called the World Masters, yeah?
You can't put him on last if his entrance music is Let's Get It Started. He's going to have to come out first, isn't he? He's going to have to come out first on the afternoon session. It's the only...
Yes. He's not thought that through, hasn't the lad?
Well, we haven't. You haven't. Everyone else has. It's brilliant.
Sure. And all right. So there might be one other. I think he's currently ranked.
I can't even put it on screen, but he said the city is definitely hungry for more darts.
Yeah.
Oh, fine. Good. Yeah, lovely. Every time I've been in that part of the world, it is, it's an opportunity. Almost every conversation for puns. You can get a boat from Vienna. Like the Austrians are fine. You can get a boat down the Danube. Maybe that's how they expect people to travel. Maybe they're expecting people like some sort of darts regatta up and down the Danube.
What are you doing?
Sign me up for that. I'm all in on that. Sign me up.
You do it for charity. It's like rowing the channel. You raise your entry fund for getting there.
I tell you what,
on the way there, and you have to deal with the fact that the boat's moving around a little bit. Like,
online,
obviously won't be quite happy if he had to go on it, but
online darts,
just get on with it.
Online darts holidays next summer. I'm going to host darts on the Danube. We'll sail up and down the Danube and just chuck darts around.
Yeah,
it'll be amazing.
I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold. Take my money now.
I'll clear one of the yachts availability.
As long as there's a bar on the boat. If I'm there, there'll be a bar on the boat. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, they won't be able to tell if you're swaying or if the boat just hits the rocky water.
Both.
Yeah.
Just count them. You'll be stood perfectly still because the boat will be swaying one way and he'll be swaying the other.
The first time ever that I've been solidly stood up after 10 pints.
Absolutely no comment on that one. Right, Euro Tour over the weekend, which means I need another screen open. I've lost it. Does someone want to start?
Where do you want to start? You want to start on Friday?
Yeah. Let's just go in order and anything that stands out. I mean, Dom Taylor's win over Jose de Sousa definitely stands out to open the Euro Tour. What a performance that was from Hightower.
Yeah, I think, and in no particular order, I think obviously the highlights from the Friday need to be or certainly early stages, Brendan Dolan winning and securing his World Cup spot. There was a little bit of an interaction that we can. I know we talked about it quite a bit on the live watch along last night, but Jermaine Watamina and Joe Cullen, that was an interesting talking point from Friday.
Yeah. And I think Joe Cullen was bang on, if I'm going to be completely honest. And that isn't anything to do with. Look, I know Joe's been getting a lot of stick of late about his comments about not believing that Pro Tour should be in Germany, that they're traditionally in the UK. They've already got a Euro Tour over there. There's no Euro Tours in the UK, etc. And now he's getting a lot of stick about hating not playing darts in the UK. That seems to be a thing on Twitter at the moment. But 100% Jermaine was in the wrong.
Yeah, he was.
And I appreciate it starts like decided. I appreciate Jermaine's at a big score, and I appreciate that Joe doesn't follow that up with a big score. And it might be a case in point of that time of it's not quite going your way, and you notice it a little bit more. But whatever happens, hyping that crowd up over the eye line of your player that's about to throw is bang out of order.
Yeah, that's it. You can't do it at the point where he's literally in his throwing motion and ready to go. Like, I'm not against him after sort of winning or like going and hyping the crowd up. There's nothing wrong with that if he wants to give it the big and celebration-wise. But when your opponent's about to throw, then it's just not. It's not all right, is it?
Do you think he's? I mean, I'm not suggesting for a minute that it was the right thing to do, and it looks really bad. But do you think he's? Do you think it is a case of trying to use that in order to carve out a victory, or do you think he's just got lost in the moment and not quite thought it through? Do you think it's a bit more instinctive than contrived?
I don't know if it's. I don't want to completely put the boot in and say he's deliberately done it. Only he knows whether it was definite that he was meant to do that at that point, or whether he just, like you say, got a little bit carried away, knows how big of a moment it is, and knows he can get the crowd on his side, and he's just done it at the wrong time, or whether he's deliberately done it. No, none of us will ever know. Like, unless he comes out and tells us, no one will ever know. And I think it's just one of those. It could have just been really bad timing.
Yeah, and that's the key thing for me here. First of all, Maliki says that it's a home tournament for Jermaine. He doesn't get it very often. Correct, he doesn't. But for me, the biggest problem for me was that he's still in Cullen's eyesight, 100%. And it is literally the biggest unwritten rule in darts. It's not even unwritten these days. There is a gamesmanship statement within the DRA rules now that you can be brought up on charges for or whatever else. The minute your opponent's at the oche, shut up. Don't do anything. Yeah. The only time you should ever interact with a crowd when your opponent is throwing is to stop them from booing. Yeah. If you've got that ability, if you so feel inclined to do so.
Yeah, I don't.
We've seen Michael Smith do that in the past. We've seen James Wade do that in the past, etc. While a player's on a 9 or whatever else, right? That is the only time you should, or if somebody's whistling when your opponent's throwing, and you don't agree with that, right? They're the only times you should ever interact with the crowd whilst your opponent is ready to throw or throwing. The minute they've missed, the minute they've collected their darts, the minute they're out of the way, or the minute that you've hit, it's your turn. Yeah. There would have been nothing wrong with Jermaine picking his darts out of the board and immediately getting the crowd going because he just banged in a 140.
Before he picks them out, yeah, like you say. Or
don't get me wrong, it might have wound you up a little bit, but actually in terms of
You've not done anything
etiquette
wrong.
of the game and the sport and everything else. He's not done anything wrong there. Joe doesn't control the hockey at that point. But the minute that he does, and Jermaine then makes that action, that's where it gets heated. That's why he gets the reaction from Joe. That's why we're sat here being quite critical of Jermaine's behaviour, because look, he's been a pro for an awful long time. And because it's a home crowd, doesn't excuse the fact that what he did was poorly timed at worst and an ridiculous act of gamesmanship at best.
Yeah,
that's really a nice way of putting it. Let's be honest. That if he's done it on purpose, it's the word that Cullen's misses throughout, which is the cheating word rather than actually Kim.
But it did give us something to talk about in what was, looking across the board, a fairly unremarkable Friday, if we're honest.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot really. Was there? Ryan Joyce getting beat, maybe. That was probably a bit of a shock.
It was, but then Dobie got revenge the next day, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, Dobie
teed you up there, didn't I?
Yeah, Dobie got revenge for the Geordies and stuffed him 6-0 the following day.
We also did see a win. Dirk van Duivenbode's win over Callum Ridds.
Yeah.
You just said that.
Kevin Doones beating Mike Decker as well is probably a little bit of a...
Well, don't get me wrong, it wasn't the best or most flamboyant game, but from a personal point of view, Marvin van Velsen's win over Christian Kist, a player that I've seen at the Super Series a couple of times. He's already got his invite back for next series, taking out a former world champion on the European Tour stage. Pretty impressive from Marvin, who plays the game at a lovely pace, by the way, and absolutely launches the darts in the board. But that's it, pretty much.
Mickey Mansell beating Willie O'Connor's probably a bit of a shock as well.
Well, I think one of the interesting things, and again, we can get dug into it a little bit more when we get into day two, is the names that we've mentioned. If you just think of the names that we've mentioned in the last 5 minutes, or the last minute and a half, the 4 or 5 players that are currently just outside match play qualification are Callum Ridds, Kevin Doots, Mike De Decker, Cam Menzies, and Dirk van Duivenbode. So, like, the 5 players that are just outside those match play qualification spots, they've all got a bit of a talking point. You know, 4 of them playing each other. So 2 of them have gone out in the qualification rounds because those 4 players chasing pack have been drawn against each other. Cam Menzies has done, I mean, he went back to back in terms of beating former world champions, managed to get rid of Raymond van Barneveld, then Peter Wright, and very nearly came through and would have really put a flag in the ground for a match play spot. So match play qualifications getting really interesting now.
It is indeed. We'll talk about that shortly. The games you pointed out then, Richie Edhouse, a big win over Damon Hesse, one of the most informed players in the world. Luke Woodhouse's win over Darryl Gurney, having a twofold effect in that one. 1, securing Brendan Dolan's spot in Team Northern Ireland for the World Cup of Darts. Dolan a winner elsewhere on the weekend. And 2, giving Luke Woodhouse a platform to really attack the next couple of weeks for that match play qualifying spot, as said before. We opened the session with a little bit of an upset. Jeffrey de Graaf, a 6-3 win over the Bullet Stephen Bunting. Bit of a surprise in that one. Dave Chisnell, solid performance over Neil Zonneveld in that one. Good to see Johnny Clayton start off what turned out to be an excellent weekend and a return to form for the Ferret with a 6-4 win over Marvin van Velsen. Danny Noppert and Andrew Gilding going all 11 legs, because what else would you want to watch on a Saturday afternoon than those two taking an age for 11 legs?
How to stop people watching darts in 45 easy minutes.
But possibly the biggest talking point of the day was the 9-darter from Ross Smith. Has he just put another curse on the European Tour? Let's not forget that Euro 9-darter he hit in 2014, I think it was. Cursed the Euro Tour for a foreseeable amount of time after he hit that 9-darter. It was spoken about an awful lot. He's just hit another one. Interesting route from Smudger, but it was in defeat to Dimitri van den Berg. Last player through in the evening session was Gian Van Veen against Dom Taylor. Right, on to the Sunday then. Johnny Clayton, once again, a big win over Dave Chisnell. Ryan Searle beating Jeffrey DeGraff. Danny Noppert seeing off Domain Watermain, a clash of styles in that one. Dan, shall I just skip the next one for you? Michael Van Gerwen, 6.
Crap game. Yeah, I didn't enjoy that at all. Move on.
Another big win for Luke Woodhouse over Richie Edhouse in this one. Good run this from Woody, who has been in, I don't want to say, what's the word I'm looking for? Underrated form recently. But he's not been getting the plaudits that perhaps an Edhouse and co have. And I think Woodhouse has been just as solid, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing all the right things, isn't he, at the minute, to get himself further and further up that order of merit. He looks, I mean, something very unusual will have to happen for him to not get to the match play, because there's 2 people underneath him and he's now got a considerable gap. So if you take the 2 underneath, he's got 11 grand. So he has to earn 11 grand less than all 5 of the people underneath him.
Yeah.
Between now and then. And that's highly unlikely.
11 and a bit, actually, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. He's got to earn 11 and a bit thousand less than the 5 players underneath him. And the reason, spoiler alert, that those players are underneath him is because they're not playing as well. So he's got to earn 11.5 grand less than 5 players who all aren't playing as well as him. He's picked up bits and pieces. He keep, those little couple of day runs in Euro Tours have served him well. And I'd be really surprised if he didn't make the match. I think really from him upwards should be safe. Just when you look at the amount of opportunities that are left and how many people can capitalize on opportunities. There's 5 people that are within, or there's 6 people within 10 grand of James Wade, but only one of them can win a Pro Tour event at any one time. So you're like, once you then go another place above that and another place above that, it's very difficult to see of those 4 or 5 in the chasing pack, they each win a Euro Tour and a Pro Tour event, one each between now and then.
Yeah.
Not going to happen, is it?
No, exactly. And you think, like, realistically, he's only 250 quid off Barney as well, Woodhouse, which the way it's going at the moment, you'd fancy him to end up above him as well.
Yeah, it's certainly all to play. It's all to play for. A couple of
that gives him an extra sort of 3 grand spur as well. Like, I think. Yeah,
and that's it. As I say, it's not that they have to earn 11 grand to catch him. They have to earn 11 grand more than him.
Exactly.
So if he does just keep picking up, if he picks up a board final in one Pro Tour event, I think we've only got 2 Pro Tour events, haven't we? Between now and the match play being finalised, we've got 2.
It's a good question.
I know we've got a Pro Tour event 11th. We've got Pro Tour 11th, 12th of June,
7th of July. So what do we have?
So we've got 4 then. A 4 on a Euro Tour.
Yeah. 11th and 12th of June. We've got Poland. We've got Denmark Pro Tour, Poland, which is
21st, 23rd of June, European Darts Open. So we've got Euro Tour.
Is Denmark a World Series or is Denmark a Pro Tour, a Euro Tour?
Denmark's a World
Series.
World Series. So the only Euro Tour we've got between now and the match play is European Darts Open in Leverkusen. And
do we? When's that?
That's
23rd of May, 23rd of June. So Dideka's qualified for it.
World Series, Euro Tour, World Cup.
Callan Ridge has qualified for it, and Mike Dideka's qualified for it. But everyone else in that chasing pack hasn't qualified for that Euro Tour. So no Kevin Dukes, no Cam Menzies, no Dirk van Duivenbode. And that's where the big opportunities are, isn't it? To pick up money between now and then. It's that Euro Tour.
Yeah, I
I
think
thought
Chris,
Dirk played all right this weekend, by the way.
he did. He looked
It was
pretty
good to see him go back and get a result in a venue where his downturn seemed to have started. I think that's a very big deal for Dirk.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he looked good. I watched his game against Rock, and I know he got beat, but I thought he played pretty well. A bit of a slow start, but then from there onwards, he was pretty competitive in that game, and he looked like when he got it back to 5-3, 4-2, and then 5-3, when he got back into there, he looked like he still had a chance. Very much had the crowd on side as well at that point, and I thought the throw looked a lot better.
Indeed. Right, let's pick up then. Final 2 games of the last 16. Gerwyn Price, a 6-1 win over GM Van Veen. At that point, Gerwyn Price looked almost inevitable to lift the title. He'd only dropped a solitary leg in the tournament. Josh Rock getting over the line in an exceptional battle with Cameron Menzies. Menzies missed darts to win it 6-4, beaten 6-5 in the end. Josh Rock producing fantastic finish in that one. In the afternoon, Johnny Clayton gets the better of Ryan. So Van Gerwen does an absolute number on Danny Noppert once again. Schindler betters Luke Woodhouse before Josh Rock saw off Gerwyn Price in solid fashion. Semi-finals were brilliant once again. Van Gerwen with a 4-0 lead and I think a 6-2 lead before succumbing to Johnny Clayton 7-6. Josh Rock and Martin Schindler producing
Rock was 3-1 down, and then and so we did watch along for that after the last session, didn't we? It was really fun. I don't know how Michael Van Gerwen didn't win. It was a very, very strange game. How we didn't come through that one. And Josh Rock just sorry,
you know why he didn't win, didn't you?
He didn't hit as many doubles as Johnny Clayton.
Well, no, a certain somebody told me it was back.
Yes, the famous Mr. Phil Bars.
Yes. Oh, get me off.
Get it in.
To be fair, you could have had it in much earlier because me and Dan had mentioned that early on. When you were still faffing around with the internet, you could have got it in after the first sort of minute and a half. I was wondering whether she knew which flight to New York he was on, just in case we needed to watch out for missiles going towards it.
We got so the first one was tense. Second one, it was an entertaining game, but like Schindler looked, because he looked great all day, he looked great all weekend. And at 3-1 up, you just sort of think, oh, Schindler's he's going to blow him away. Rock couldn't quite get into it. And then Rock just did 6 on the spin. Just went, and he didn't do it with anything like, there was nothing miraculous. You look at the stats and it looks like they've both had a crap game. And it was a crap game in lots of ways. But he just dug out a win, Josh Rock. And he did exactly the same in the final as well. Obviously, big, huge, 30 grand. He's won that Euro Tour event. It's dragged him right up the order of merit. It's the lowest winning average of a Euro Tour event that we've seen this year by a lump. The average in the final, 89. And when you look at other winning Euro Tour averages this year, you got Littler winning with a 103, Humphries with a 112, Littler again with a 102, Rob Cross with a 105. We've seen huge, big final performances this year in Euro Tours. And Josh Rock sort of ground a win out, found a way to win each game. And I think all credit to him for it, because you can't always win by just absolutely blowing your opponent away. Sometimes you've got to dig out a victory and take legs when they're offered to you. And when your opponent doesn't quite get there on their own throw, get up and close those doubles out. He played really well. The stats look bang average, but it was a very impressive victory, certainly over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, let's go straight to it. Josh Rock breaking the duck, getting over the line. There was a lot of talk last year about his year not being as impressive as perhaps the year before, but actually, if you look at it, it's probably more impressive. The first year we saw spurts from Josh Rock. We saw the confidence. We saw the belief. We're going to go and win the World Championship after winning the World Youth Championship, etc. But we saw flashes from Josh Rock in that period, whilst we also saw the vulnerability of somebody new to the tour. Last year, he was far more consistent, perhaps without the reward. This year, look, strong signs come May. He's won a Euro Tour. He's proven that he can win up there on that big stage that people were waiting for perhaps 18 months ago and for him to have that instant impact. Have we sort of forgotten about Josh Rock at our peril here?
Quite possibly, because, like you say, he wasn't bad by any means last year. It was just because what we saw of the flashes in that first year got everyone a little bit too excited about how good he potentially could be. But what we're seeing now is someone that is experienced after having a couple of years on the tour, that knows how to win matches even when he's not playing well. And he's not going to drop off and give someone an easy game anymore. And I think that showed, like you say, in the final. I mean, he's been outscored by Johnny Clayton, but somehow he's got more darts at a double and he's managed to win the game. And I don't even know quite how he managed that, but it's just about doing the old cliche of the right things at the right time, which is what he did. And he's learning to do that and learning to, it doesn't have to be 110 average and banging in 9 darters for him to go and win events. Like,
I mean, to be fair, it is worth pointing out, like, I know I said he ground it out. He did bash up when he played Dirk van Dijvenbode, he averaged 105.
Yeah. Oh, he was unbelievable in that game.
So like and he was over a ton when he beat Price. Like I think he's dug in deep where it really mattered, at the business end of the tournament. But he's and again, you look at you look in the quarter that he was in, with Barney and with Peter Wright. Granted, form's not up there with everybody at the minute, but he's played amazing. He's played superbly to beat Dirk, who looked very, very good the day before against Callan Ridge. He's beat Menzies after Menzies has gone back-to-back over former world champions. He's beat Gerwyn Price, who looked ridiculously strong against both Mickey Mansell and Jan van Veen, himself averaging 105. He's done a really, really good job to get through that. And we saw real good snippets in the afternoon from Johnny Clayton. That was quite positive. And I know Clayton's he's reached the final, so obviously we've seen some positives from him. But some of those games, I mean, let's be honest, brutally honest, I had him second favourite in, the game against Chisnell. I didn't think he'd get through that. I backed Chisnell. Then I backed Searle to beat him. I gave up by then backing against him because he just kept doing me in. But like again, Clayton's route there, the number one seed, albeit without Luke Humphries, but the tournament's number one seed, he's bashed off Dave Chisnell convincingly. Then he's beat Ryan Searle very convincingly. Then he's edged out Michael van Gerwen. Like, this is a very positive. In fact, and I know we're going to come on to the World Cup, but we've seen a very, very positive weekend from both Welsh players.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what's so impressive for Rock as well, to be honest, though, in the final, is that if you get embroiled in that sort of game where you've got to tough it out and scrap it out, other than sort of Nathan Aspinall, Johnny Clayton's probably the next one that you don't want to be in that sort of a game with, because he will win those sort of games more often than not.
Indeed. Right. That's Euro Tour boxed off, I think. That's pretty much there. It does move us nicely on to the World Cup. So we'll go there next if we're going to talk about the form of both the Welsh players. However, this is your warning in chat to start getting some questions in. We're going to blitz through the World Cup as it stands at the moment. Then we probably need a 5-10 minute discussion on the US Darts Masters and the North American Darts Championship this weekend. Then we'll answer any questions you've got for about 5 minutes time. If we overrun, Cam, you can apologise. Dan's got house free to himself, so it doesn't really matter this weekend. And my partner's
other than that's why I have to keep getting up and doing jobs. That's why I keep having to disappear to like let a cat in or let a cat out or do something that normally Anna picks up what through my doors. Absolutely not. Not taking on, not stop breaking them up. Absolutely, like no chance.
So yes, the players are going to have to take one for the team and make sure you don't have to keep getting up. Just
it's bank holiday, innit? All the staff are off, the butlers off, the housekeepers off, the gardeners are off. I'm having to run around like a bleeding idiot.
He had to get his own Sam Pellegrino.
You can decide whether they get bank holidays off or not. That's up to you.
Pouring my own sparkling water tonight. It's absurd.
Hang on a minute. You're making me look bad now.
Lads,
What
we
do you
might
mean
need
you got
some
sparkling
serious
water?
overtime. All right. Time off. We can bully Dan when we're off the chat in a minute. I have maybe forgotten about Champions Week, which I bloody ref last week. So let's go there first. Andreas Harrysson lifting the £25,000 chap, probably the biggest prize in amateur darts right now after a very, very solid Champions Week down at the Moda Super Series. Now the Euro Tour was on. I know it was a very, very busy weekend of sport. First of all, fantastic evening. 6 very, very good finalists. We've seen Reece Robinson rock up, be handed a defeat by Bo, who averaged 104 to start. We've seen a very, very good performance from Cam Crabtree to beat Conor Heenahan. All in all, a very, very good evening. I think, I know I'm a little biased at working it, but the production that has gone into a Champions Night now compared to way back when Conan White had lifted the first one has gone up tenfold. Standard
It's a
was
different show, isn't it? It's a completely different show altogether now.
The standard was excellent. All 6 players are absolutely brilliant, but we have to talk about that final and what a way to win it. Harrysson has made 4 threes his scoreline for the entire week. Perhaps to his detriment early on in Group A, he seemed to be beaten by it more than anybody else. Makes his way through the semi-final, beating Bo Greaves 4-3, who'd taken out a 161 and a 104, I think it was, to keep herself in that encounter. 3 apiece with Cam Crabtree in the final. Cam's on 179, fires in a 171 to leave 8, and Andreas Harrysson steps up to ping 121 for 25 grand and to win the Series 7 title. One of the most ridiculous finishes under that amount of pressure I think I've ever seen. Yeah. And Andreas's response, I take out 121 a lot here anyway.
I love it.
25 grand with your opponent sat on a single dart finish.
Yeah, he's mega, and I thought it was a brilliant Champions Week. Probably more. I mean, I enjoyed it probably more than I have a lot like other ones in recent memory. I thought it was a really, really good tournament. Played in a really good spirit. I thought we were spoilt really with the standard that we got towards the back end of it. And it is lovely to have those those moments and having it won. I mean, yes, it's impressive when someone comes up and wins 4-1. Oh, great, yeah, this is a good match. But to have it won like that just makes it's all the more watchable. And I think everybody there continues to do a really good job. Like you said there, it's a huge. You can really see the development from where it is now to where when you look at the footage of previous Champions Weeks, and long may it continue to develop. If it keeps heading, if it continues on the same trajectory, then we've got some, lots more exciting things to see from the Super Series over the course of the next year or so. But yeah, absolutely smashing week. Really, really good.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, look, when the likes of Darius Labanauskas isn't really getting a mention there, but he was just so solid, so quality all the way through. Reece Robinson, 2-0 down to Labanauskas, averaging mid-60 and wins the match 4-2, high 90s. That's some standard he produced to effectively stay alive at that moment, only to see Darius beat Bo for only the 6th time in, what are we looking at? 28 matches. Takes some doing. Brutal. Before that game against Darius, she was 12 from 12 in games that I'd reffed.
Man. We saw some absolutely amazing, just really, really, really fantastic darts. Highly, highly impressive.
Indeed. Jesus, I'd forgotten about that one as well. The ADC Tour Championship this weekend. I think we'll cover that one next week. And I have shelved the World Cup because we've still got a few weeks on that. We might get a few more confirmed players. But the big news in that one is the 40 teams, countries taking part, and a majority of the players involved in that tournament are now on the PDC TV website. They were announced last week. The big news from the last few days is that Brendan Dolan has beaten Daryl Gurney to the spot for Team Northern Ireland. I'm not sure what happened with the Belgian spot. Did Dedeker get in over Hybrex?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Well,
like not in terms of qualification. As
he
I
will
know,
be because his shoulders.
yeah,
It was
obviously
still
there's-
TBC last time I looked on the website. They hadn't updated that article, so
Well, in terms of just pure ranking, then
Yeah.
it's hybrids, but obviously there's a you know, an asterisk next to that for the time being, isn't there?
there is indeed. So we'll talk about the World Cup
Surely
when
can't
we
be-
get
can't be
to
ready
it.
to fly.
Yeah. But we do need to give our thoughts on this weekend. Obviously, there's a reason it's us three on the show tonight. Well, there's a reason he's here because Mr. Phil Bars
Go on. Do you need me to find it? Have you got
Yes, the famous Mr. Phil Bars.
is on a flight to New
I
York
know,
City
yeah.
right now for the US Darts Masters and the Northern American Darts Championships. As we said earlier on, if you weren't listening or thereabouts, he will be live on Wednesday from New York. Anthony popped in earlier, part of the CDC team, who are doing a fantastic job with North American darts. Who said the guests on Wednesday are expected to be Jamie Banks from the PDC, Mark Webster, Jules Van Dongen, Danny Lauby, Steve Brown, Peter Cetera, Russ Bray, and more. So if you're in the area, make sure you check out the Live Lounge live in person. If not, you can catch it on our YouTube channel. Obviously, folks, I know a lot of you are in the UK. That will be US evening, so you're looking at a late start here in the UK, but you're more than welcome to watch it live, of course, or watch it back on catch-up on YouTube whenever you get the chance. Right, the field for this weekend is set. First of all, let's talk about the 8 players representing the North American. They are Matt Campbell, Jules Van Dongen, Danny Lauby, Stowe Bunce, Alex Spellman, who we had live on the show just a few weeks ago, and then the 3 qualifiers from recent events in David Cameron, Jeff Smith, and Adam Saveda. They will be taking on the 8 PDC representatives. They are Luke Humphries, Michael Van Gogh, and Michael Smith, Nathan Aspinall, Gerwyn Price, Rob Cross, Peter Wright, Luke Littler. I should have just said the Premier League 8 and saved my voice.
You are.
2 tournaments to consider this weekend. We don't have the draw for either. They're normally done live from the venues throughout the week. So we can't really plot a route to there. But what I want to know, boys, is in the North American Championships, who are you starting favourite from the North American 8? Reminder, they are Matt Campbell, Jules Van Dongen, Danny Lauby, Stowe Bunce, Alex Spellman, David Cameron, Jeff Smith, and Adam Saveda.
I think it's hard at the moment, and I appreciate that we've got tour card holders in there, but I think in form, stats, and a gut feeling, I find it difficult to not say Spellman at the moment.
Very, very good in qualifying. Obviously, one cross-border challenge to book his
Yeah,
spot.
and played some really, really impressive stuff in doing so. Like I think it's the strongest 8. Like by far with it, I think it's a really, really strong 8, and it's brilliant to see the CDC being able to post an 8 that looks like that. And you've got a real mixed bag. You know, you've got some tour card holders, you've got some sort of stalwarts of yours go. No, you've got the likes of the more experienced ex-tour card holders in there as well. And there's some strength in the qualifiers. I think it's a great lineup, but yeah, difficult for me to look past Spellman, I think, at the minute.
Just on that, before Cam gives who he thinks will go on to lift that title, you mentioned how strong that
He's
lineup is.
he'll go for, won't he?
You look at the players that aren't there. You look at the players that aren't there. No Leonard Gates, no Danny Baggish, no John Part. These are guys that have been there notoriously.
Oh yeah, and that's
they're not making it.
And we've talked, haven't we, about the depth of talent over there, and that talent pool becoming bigger. And it's no longer about 2 or 3 players or 4 or 5 players that are able to compete. And yes, I mean, and I don't mean able to compete on the world stage. I don't expect the 8 to turn up and really threaten the Premier League 8, but I think you could lift that 8 up and drop them into, a darts tournament anywhere in the world on an affiliated tour, and they're as good as is operating on any affiliated tour in the world.
I'll come back to that in a minute. Cam, who are you backing to win the North American Darts Championship?
It is a tough one. I just think if he gets it right, and Dan has already hinted at who I'm going to go with, but if he does get it right, I just think Lowby's got levels he can go through. And if he does get it right, and if he is playing well, as we've seen him do in the Super Series before he got so called, as we've seen him do in events, he's beaten big names this year in Pro Tours. Not in, obviously, he's not gone deep in any of them, but he has beaten big names throughout the year. And I just think if he gets it right, he might just be able to go and do it.
Indeed. Usually, in this sort of situation, I consider myself the Jeremy Clarkson of the group. But in this instance, I am James May because
You're the biggest cock end.
Yeah, but in this instance, I am James May because I have done this properly. The answer you are both looking for is David Cameron.
No, it's not.
He's in exceptional form. Went deep in the cross-border challenge, booked his spot there through winning an event over the weekend, backed it up with one of the tour events as well. Looked very, very good when he came over to the UK the last time I've seen him there. And booked his spot in Canada's World Cup team, ousting Jeff Smith, by the way. That team this year is Campbell and Cameron, not Campbell and Smith for the first time in a long, long time. I think David Cameron is the one to watch this weekend.
Well, he's going to be busy on the telly because there's another election coming up and people want to talk to him all the time.
I mean, it is also, to be honest, as well, and I know you just mentioned it, and how, and I know it's different strokes for different folks, but, you know, how have none of us, other than to mention other people beating him, like mentioned Matt Campbell?
Yeah, I know.
You know, when... You know, if you look at the pool there, you know, he's the one that's just got to the, you know, what did he make? Third round Ali Pali this year. You know, if you look at it, he's got, if you like, the current pedigree in terms of where he's competing. Because he's not, you know, he isn't competing on an affiliate tour, is he? Like he's there in the mix with the best in the world, and none of us have picked him. So it does show that how deep that talent is at the minute.
It does indeed. My next question, obviously, that was the North American Darts Championship we've just covered very briefly. The US Darts Masters involves all of the PDC invited players as well. Do we give any hope to a North American player perhaps winning it? We've seen it in Australia with Kyle Anderson and Damon Heta before. Given that this is the Premier League 8, this is a week and a bit on from the Premier League, and the two loops are going to be very, very tired. Are we completely ruling that out in front of a home crowd?
Yes.
Of course we are. Yes,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah.
Stop asking stupid questions and let's move on.
All right, who wins it?
Hold on, wait there then. Humphries.
Was that heads?
Well, there was a Luke on either side of this coin.
Luke on both sides.
Right, there was a Luke on either side of the coin, and I don't know how else. And I appreciate that might sound a bit boring, but at the moment, if you want me to give a serious response to something about picking a winner in a field like that, I just think it's a toss of a coin as to which Luke comes through the final. Providing they're not drawn, you know, to meet each other before then.
Gerwyn Price wins it.
Price, who spent the entirety of the Euro Tour telling everybody that he doesn't like non-ranked events, is going to focus on ranked events and is going to be world number one again, but isn't asked of him. You think a week later he's going to go and win a non-ranked invitational?
Yeah, because he'll just be having a bit of fun in New York for a week and he'll just play well.
To be fair, that is often when he plays well, when he's
just relax and he'll be having a bit of fun, and I think he'll just go and stick a middle finger up and win it. I just think he will.
All right, one final question on the US Darts Masters. Considering you were so against it a minute ago, is it more likely that one of the 8 North American players wins this, or Peter Wright wins?
Honestly, if you could give me Lowby or Wright now to win it, I'm backing Lowby all day long.
Yeah, especially if that gives me 8 different chances. Like you're basically giving me a 9-horse race and asking me to cover if I want to cover one of them or 8 of them. And
one of them that's not won a race for a long time.
So I'm now
And
offering you, would that still be the same if Peter Wright is the toughest they have to go through?
one of them doesn't know which shoes he's going to put on that day. He doesn't
Yeah.
know which
He's got 4 different horseshoes on, different sizes and shapes.
You're going to stop
You're
halfway
right, by the way.
and switch.
He played pretty well at the weekend before being beaten by Cameron Menzies. Does not rule him out 100%. He was just a player that finished bottom in that Premier League campaign. Right, that is
dead, as Jamie just said.
Yeah, he wanted
that is it for our North American chat. If you do have any questions, make sure you fire them in the chat room as said before. I'm not sure if I've seen any since I said that about 20 minutes ago. James has more chance of Sunderland getting promoted next season. Steady on now.
Christ.
If you've seen any questions,
if you said Blackburn, that would have been fair enough. But Sunderland they've got a couple of decent players.
Doesn't take much to get the chat room going, does it?
No. One more quick reminder then, because it is coming up in the next couple of days, our Live Lounge Live special from New York City. I should probably tell you where it is, but I'll be honest, the venue slipped my mind. So I'm just looking for it on our Twitter account.
You probably better go onto Instagram.
Oh, yeah, we post on there less.
Not just the hat rack, mate.
No comment. How many years until MVG falls out the top 4 in the rankings? Ooh. Cam, it's not on our Instagram.
It is. Live Lounge Live. I've got it here.
I mean,
Nails Bar and Grill, 251 West 51st Street, New York.
There. Yeah, what comes so how many years MVG falls out the top 4 in the rankings? Does he fall out the top 4 in the rankings?
Yeah, too many. Of course he does.
Well, at some point he will. Like, there's going to be a number of years before he does. But like,
just a fire at the top. Taylor did. Close enough.
Well, that next year he then falls out of it, doesn't he?
And comes off it completely.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
As you can't really hold a position in the top 4 without major finals.
Yeah.
You've got to be you've got to be carrying major final money somewhere. You don't have to win them necessarily, but you've got to be carrying major final money. And I think there's too many players that are within. Like, there's too many players with. I mean, how often can you say there are? How many? So on his.
I mean, a massive chunk of his money is 2 years ago, so he's got to have a reasonable year.
There's 10 players within 100 grand of him. Like, and without
161 grand this year, that's on his ranking. Yeah, that he needs to defend.
There's 10 players within 100 grand of him, and those players include Luke Littler, Stephen Bunting, Nathan Aspinall, Damon Heta, Dave Chisnell,
Gary Anderson.
Gary Anderson's a bit for. So Gary Anderson's just outside. He's just over 100 grand, but not a million miles away. I just think over the course of the next. I mean, the reason I said 2 years is over the course of the next year, you're going to expect some of those players to go close to him. If he doesn't make, if he doesn't make a match play final, and one of those players does, then that's a serious inroad on his, on his top 4 spot.
Yeah.
And
if he doesn't make a World Championship final,
this is it.
He could be out of it by the end of the year. Realistically, at the end of the world,
especially when you've got Luke Littler, who is on a. So at the minute, he continues to be, and he will be for another 18 months on a complete freebie. He's defending no money at all. So every single time he wins something, he's just going up the rankings. So without a shadow of a doubt, within 2 years, there's one spot in there gone because it's Littler's.
Yeah,
because it has to be, because he can't lose any money. Everybody else in there is defending, and he isn't. So everything he earns, he goes up. So you're only playing for 3 spots. He's not getting Humphries' spot. So he's playing. And he's not getting Littler's spot, which means you've got 10 people within 100 grand playing for 2 spots. Yes, he starts off with a head start on them, but Damon Hetter's 50 grand behind him.
Damon Hetter's on course for finishing the year in the top 4.
Which is, Damon Hetter is 50 grand behind Michael van Gerwen. And again, if you ask me where to put this 50 pence on, you give me a 50 grand swing. If you make the betting line 50 grand as to who would have a better rest of the year, Hetter or Michael van Gerwen, I'd have to have a real serious think about it.
Yeah. You've got too much money.
Yeah, but we're done things trying to fool us carrying a silver coin. My ass.
What?
You ain't carrying a silver coin.
If you're flipping 50p's, I've got a penny here that I'm flipping.
It's me tossing coin. It's me deciding coin.
You do want to flag me away. Completely up to you,
to be honest.
It's because I've had a couple of weeks dry. I've done away with the predicting wine, and now I've got the deciding coin. That's all.
Bobbins, get back to
Speaking
the
of,
prediction line.
Dan, we would have announced who'd won the prediction league, but you still haven't sent me last week. So this is your final warning. This time next week, we will announce who won the Premier League prediction.
Is it me that's holding it up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
it's hard work for him because he has to try and find them because he doesn't know which show to take them from, and he tends to go with whichever show was the better outcome because he predicts something different.
Not scrolling back. I've done it once. I literally sat here.
Yeah, his predictions on a Thursday and a Monday are completely different.
I sat here and picked bars from week 12, and I picked up 5-6 weeks worth of shows. So I went back and sat and watched him faff around. Ridiculous how long it takes us to predict the Premier League, by the way. And watched and went through and picked up all his results because he'd never sent it me. And then he's not sent it me for the last 4.5 weeks. So Bars has been eliminated. It was pretty tight towards the end. I know what the standings were now before the final week. When we then had
definitely not me, I can say that.
Yeah, me neither. I had Smith to beat Humphries and then Humphries to win the final. So I got bugger all.
I had Smith to win the final, but I didn't get much either. I got Humphries winning his semi-final, but not by the right score.
Yeah, Dan, you're the only one holding up predictions, and I can go back and put the points.
Also, I did this same sort of prediction league for our darts team as well, and decided to run it for our darts team. It's a lot of work, innit? I will not be doing it again.
And I bet you cleverly put yours on a spreadsheet. I have done mine on Notes app.
Well, that's how I started off, and I realised this is stupid.
Yeah, and I got to the point where I just kept building it on there and was like, "Oh, this is too much effort to move to a spreadsheet."
Yeah, no, I swapped after about 4 weeks to the spreadsheet. But what I did twice was I left it like 8 weeks without, like 4 weeks without doing an update, which then makes it a really big job to get up to it when you haven't got a record of everyone's thing. Have we had anything else question-wise?
We did.
Malik, thoughts on James Wade's tweet about Grayson Murray? I thought it was a really sort of solid tweet from James Wade, someone who we know who which has had his issues in the past as well. It's just a really, really sad weekend for sport when you lose somebody that is so young and has clearly battled a lot of things and has gone through what he's gone through. He got himself sober, he's got engaged, he seems to be back in a good place. He's won earlier this year as well. And it just shows you that it still doesn't mean that everything's all right. And I don't know if anyone follows Jimmy and Nath on Instagram. Quite funny sort of podcast radio show from Australia. But Jimmy, I shared it on my Instagram earlier, but anyone sort of like myself that suffers as well with that sort of thing, just have a listen to what Jimmy said about it, because it just puts it in a bit of perspective and shows why it has such a big impact on a lot of people. And the biggest thing to say is just thoughts out to his family, because it's not just the effects that it's had on him, but the effect it has on them as well. And anyone that is suffering with anything like that, just reach out. There's people around, and everyone just check in on everyone as well. Like, you never know how much that little thing might mean to someone. So I think that's as much as well as I can articulate it anyway.
Bang on, mate. All I'll say is my DMs on every single platform are open.
Yeah, same as with me.
Message. Just, yeah. If you need a chat, anything, message. That's simple. Right, a couple more questions before we do end the show. First one was Hayter unavailable for the Modus women? Gemma Hayter is playing some lovely darts in a minute since her return to the sport. In truth, I think the lineup was picked or invitations were sent out before Gemma's return to this level of darts. She's played in a one block of women's series, a couple of county games, and obviously the ADC event at the weekend. I know that she lives quite local. Because of that, I believe that if there is issues with the lineup at any point this week, then Gemma would be the replacement. But obviously, remember, it is only 12 players. You think of the players that aren't involved this week: Mikuru, Lisa Ashton, Anastasia Dobromoslova, Gemma Hayter, Steph Clark, who's now playing for England. You look at the wider capacity for players at the minute: Rose Mort, who's playing for Wales and playing pretty solid through the county game; Angela Kirkwood, from the north, from Dan's neck of the woods, possibly one of the most informed females on the planet right now. It leaves the door open for another one, is basically where we are with that one. So keep your eyes peeled for long-term future. But yeah, look, there can only be 12, and 12 were picked a while ago. Warren says, next first-time PDC TV event winner. One name, go.
TV event, not Euro Tour then. Major.
Yeah.
Don't start that debate in the same question.
It depends. Is the
What is a
Masters?
major?
10 past. This is how we're ending, by the way. Next, first time winner of a PDC TV event, and then we are out of here.
Damon Hatter.
Don't think he's wrong.
I really am.
I don't like to agree.
It would make headline news if that was the case.
Yeah, I think.
First time, if you want someone that's never won a TV title, then Damon Hatter.
Yeah, I think the predicting coin's got it right.
Yeah,
I think it is Damon Hatter, probably. Yeah,
I think there's 4 names you can put in that conversation: Hatter, Schindler, Dirk, Josh Rock. And at the moment, Damon Hatter is the most likely for me, 100%. Don't forget, by the way, US Darts Masters is this weekend. No idea what ITV are doing for the coverage. Anthony was in the chat room. The show on Wednesday will be broadcast live right here on the Online Darts YouTube channel. I remind you that there are a range of interviews on our channel right now. We played you some clips from Chris Mason earlier. Wayne Mardle speaks a lot of sense in the chat that Phil had of him last week. Some up from Nathan Aspel and a few other players from various exhibitions that we've been to over the last few weeks, with plenty more to come as well. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button, drop us a like on this one, and head over and catch up with those in your own time. And do tune in to see Phil, Anthony, and the boys from New York on Wednesday. 6:30 is about 11 p.m. UK time. So keep your eyes peeled for that one live here on the YouTube channel. But for now, I've been Jack Garwood, joined by Dan Simpson and Cam McFarlane for the Online Darts Live Lounge. We really do appreciate you joining us this evening whilst I look for the button to say goodbye. Keep scrolling. We'll see you all.
Bye-bye.